It was supposed to be in April and then it was moved to July, but even in July, it seems the Nigerian people, the Nigerian government and the DISCOs, that is the electricity distribution companies, are finding it difficult to agree on reviewing the electricity tariff, which is supposed to happen in July, the 1st of July to be precise. And they're saying, well, this is not a good time considering the outbreak of COVID-19 and the consequences on the economy. But the discourse is saying if we want constant power supply in the country, then Nigerians have to pay more because there's a need to have more investment, more liquidity available for investment. So at what point would this happen? Well, we'll look at that on this episode of Special Report. I'm Ini John Mekwa. A common sound in homes and business places in Nigeria. Conversations about electricity supply have now become predictable.
Since about 12 years ago, we don't have light.
Sometimes they attempt to tell you that they share it. Me, I don't understand the modality in which they are using to share the light.
NEPA will give us bill without light.
Sometimes it has provoked communities to peaceful protests. And it's all in a bid to satisfy the 144.53 kilowatts per hour electricity consumption per capita, which the World Bank has placed as the need of Nigerians. Deciphering the issues which seem to mitigate meeting this need has birthed various approaches, one of which is the privatization of the sector about 7 years ago. After the admittance of the private sector into the electricity fold through mostly the distribution companies, the DISCOs, the challenge of inadequate and obsolete infrastructure became the major theme of discussion, and solving this problem requires huge financing. The electricity distribution companies complain that the inflow of revenue has not been as expected, and this has stunted the infrastructural development intended by the privatization process. But many ask about the initial investment from the DISCOs.
One question I should also ask is, when these investments, when they were made, monies were paid, right? It wasn't free, monies were paid. What were those monies? What were they used for? What were they utilized for? Is it a question of not having the investment? A lot of investment has happened in the last few years. A significant amount of investment has been made. But the question is it enough? There's always room for investment. Even as we speak, there are a lot of things that we need to do, projects here and there, and we need money for these things to happen. If you don't have the cash, what do? You look outward, outside, to an external party, either the banks, to give you the money. But the bankers, like we know, they would not give you money if they can see that in the venture where you want to put that money into has structural issues, right? So even if you want to get more money to make more investments, we have fundamental issues that we need to sort out, that we need to resolve, part of which is what is leading now to this discussion around tariff review.
Nigerians are now familiar with the term tariff review. While it could be upward or downward, an increase was supposed to have been implemented in April 2020, and then it was moved to July. Reactions have been trailing this proposal, one of which is from some members of the over 41 million micro, small and medium enterprises represented by Sweden.
What makes them be able to be productive? Good infrastructure, good road network, electricity, availability of water, and many other infrastructure. Now, government is coming up. They want to increase tariff on electricity. In short, it's going to have multiplier effects on pricing policy of this MSME. It's going to affect the production. The price of goods and services will go higher, because we cannot just say that, yes, I've been paying, assuming I pay 7,000 per month, and now you're now increasing the tariff, I pay 25,000. So where will the difference go to? Is it not going to be distributed on the consumer? So you see, a lot of things is a chain link. Yes, government increase salary, but at the same time, the salary has been eroded off with all the increase in this, increase in that, increase in... So I don't think is an appropriate one, because some of my clients here have been raising dust. How many times have they increased tariff over years? How many times are we getting value for our money? That goes mileage to let us know that yes, we are still in that cycle that we keep on what? Rounding in the same environment and getting what? No result. Because you notice that government still continue to give them subvention while they are supplying the electricity that we are not even what? Enjoying. Let's call a spade, because this thing affects me, it affects you. If we are not entrepreneurs, we live in our residential houses, and then how many days, how many times, how many hours do we have light in a day? And talk less of entrepreneurs that are the one producing, making life worth of living for we citizens of Nigeria. See, even if they are privately owned organization, government should come in, because there's nothing wrong in giving a kind of a subvention to those sectors that affect the economy.
Interestingly, there are other operators of MSMEs who have a different point of view. Engineer Moses Jebutu is one of those.
The power sector is still being held down. Held down because there's no injection of capital into the power sector. It will surprise you to know that we have the worst tariff in the entire African region. And where there is no, if investors don't have returns for their capital, they are not likely to encourage other investors. Neither are they likely to be enthusiastic to put in more capital. And you know, power sector is a capital incentive sector. What killed the other sector, when it was government monopoly, was there was no capital injection into it. And now that it's a private sector concerned, it is expected continuous injection of capital is the only thing that will make them to render the right service, especially to be able to get their returns back.
Okay, but when people keep saying Nigeria has the worst tariff in Africa, I mean, someone could also say we have the worst supply in Africa.
Yes, you like I said, it's a capital-intensive sector. If you don't put in, if I put in money and I decided to continue to inject capital into it, and I don't have returns of what I've injected, I will not be encouraged to do so. For example, even I was going through the new tariff. You find out that the new tariff is just about 12 cents equivalent, the highest, because the discos, they do not have the same tariff because of demographic challenges. I think Port Harcourt has the highest, which is 48.9 naira. That's the highest. And when you look at it, we extrapolate it to dollars, it's about 12 point something cents. Chad Republic here, I was in Chad sometimes in N'Djamena. I never saw supply went up. About 2 years ago, I was in Equatorial Guinea. I never saw supply went off. Chad charges 90 cents per unit of electricity. Here in Nigeria, what we are going to now is just 12 cents. And when you look at it, by the time you look at what is expected of them, you are looking into meter penetration. They have to meter customers. And if they don't meter customers, they are not likely to erase the level of, to limit the level of average technical and commercial and the other losses.
The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC) is empowered by the Electric Power Sector Reform Act 2005 to ensure an efficiently managed electricity supply industry that meets the yearnings of Nigerians for stable, adequate and safe electricity supply. The Act mandates the Commission to ensure that electricity operators recover costs on prudent investment and provide quality service to customers. The multi-year tariff order is a tariff model for incentive-based regulation that seeks to reward performance above certain benchmarks. It reduces technical and non-technical commercial losses and leads to cost recovery and improved performance standards from all industry operators in the Nigerian electricity supply industry.
The last time a major review was done was in December 2015, and the new tariff took effect from 1st of February 2016. According to law, and this industry is governed by law, EPSRA, Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2005. The regulator is expected to conduct a biannual minor review. Minor. Why do they have to do that? They have to conduct minor review of the tariff, taking into consideration the macroeconomic indices like forex, foreign exchange, like rate of inflation, cost of generation, which also include cost of gas, because majority of our production of electricity is from gas-fired power plants. So that minor review that they are supposed to conduct every 6 months has not been conducted since February 2016. And now, they decide to do the right thing by doing that review. And a lot of people, either out of mischief or ignorance, are crying, are shouting. But some people, and I do respect those people who genuinely feel that, oh, if they do that review, it may lead to an increase. And nothing will happen now. And nothing will happen until around April 2020. Those who are genuinely concerned because of their income, level of income, like minimum wage, VAT had gone up, and other things in the country generally, I understand the sensitivity, I understand their feeling, but I also invite them and other Nigerians to understand the fact that what we are talking about here is the issue of cost of production of electricity. Any product that you sell, you need to know how much it costs. That cost of production ought to determine the price, the selling price. In the case of electricity, what has happened is that we've been underselling the product. As distributors, the cost of electricity to us, national average on the domestic tariff, is about 18.88 kobo per kilowatt hour. The selling price, and I'm saying national average, is about 31.56 kobo. That means there's a shortfall of about 49 naira between what we are buying and what we are selling. So we are buying something on credit. We are now selling for less than the cost price. So we are not able to pay back to the person who sold to us. Because if you are a baker and you sell bread to me at 80 naira per loaf, and here in Surulere, they now say, okay, oh, in normal Olamojuba or Masha, I should be selling that bread for 30 naira. That means there is a shortfall of 50 naira. And the governor of Lagos State, who now say I should be selling at 30 naira, has not given me 50 naira to fill the gap, the shortfall, whether you call it subsidy or anything. Once that shortfall is not filled, it means that I will be accumulating shortfall every day I sell that bread. It's a matter of time the business will collapse. That's what we are saying. So it's about naira and kobo.
Your Excellency, I've just been asked to respect.
The relief for this course is yet postponed, as federal lawmakers have intervened and asked that the review be put on hold, with the probability that it would be implemented in the first quarter of 2021.
We are sure that that announcement of the increase in electricity tariff in Nigeria is untimely, and we believe that we need to do more work to ensure that before any increase, there must be some measures, some steps, and some line of actions that must be exhausted, including the metering. And this is a welcome idea to the Vice President as well. This is when they provide services, efficient and effective services to consumers, that they can make money. But in the process, as a government, we too must ensure that we discharge our obligations as provided for in the share purchase agreement signed. And once we're able to achieve that, we would have a better situation in the power sector in Nigeria. It's doable. It has happened elsewhere. So we cannot continue to give discourse and GENCOS the resources that we could ordinarily deploy in building schools and hospitals. But whatever is necessary for us to do as part of our agreement with them, we must do those.
As at the fourth quarter of 2017, the National Bureau of Statistics recorded that only 46.16, equivalent of 3.45 million consumers of the total of about 7.5 million power consumers in Nigeria were metered. Then came the meter asset providers policy.
A lot of customers have now been metered, and a lot of customers are still waiting to be metered, because we understand that, of course, metering cannot be done in one day. Year on year, as we try to provide more meters for more people, we also realize the need to accelerate the metering process. And that is why in the last few months, or going to 2 years now, federal government also tried to liberalize and open up the metering space to allow for third parties to come into and provide metering services by way of the meter asset providers. So there was a regulation that was issued to make that possible. And under that system, we now have a lot of companies who have gotten permits or approvals to participate as meter providers in the sector. And so most of them, of course, have hit the ground running, and they have been providing meters to those who have applied. There's still a lot of work to be done. Even though there are challenges, we're working with government and all the relevant agencies. Progress is being made to resolve those issues so that the metering space or pace can be fastened.
So far, electricity consumers in Nigeria will be working with over 100 meter service providers approved by NERC to work with all the discos in the country. MAPs are persons certified by the Commission as manufacturers, suppliers, vendors, installers of electricity energy meters and/or metering systems. They are to work as entities contracted by the discos to provide meter to Nigerians.
CBN backs manufacturers, so does BOI, Bank of Development, and quite a few other DFIs. But the MAP is a separate vehicle from a manufacturer. The MAP is a funding entity whose job it is to finance, right, the rollout of these meters and enter into a leasing arrangement, right, with the end user, right? So the MAP needs its own capital, and it needs to be long-term, patient capital, right? That will be deployed over a period of time. As you said, 10 years, right? 10 years. At the moment, there are options. They're just a bit expensive, right? And so when you're thinking about the customer in Kogi State, right, or the customer in Kano, or not Lagos, right? Not in Ikeja, and not in the urban areas and in the cities, but the vast majority of Nigerians, as much as possible, cheap capital and low cheap capital, it's important for us to be able to deploy. But you can understand, the position of the government to some extent, because they've been intervening in the power sector for the longest time. There are many other areas that require intervention, right? From, whether it's mining today that is looking for concessionary rates, or agriculture. Everybody wants concessionary rates if they could get it, right? And I think it's incumbent on us in the power sector to ensure that this transaction is properly structured enough to be able to attract the cheap kind of capital that we're looking for and retain it in the long term.
Apart from providing meters, the discos assure that they have their eyes on other areas which will contribute to better power supply in the country.
We don't like to pass the buck. We don't sit and say it's TCN today or it's ECO tomorrow. At the end of the day, we know that the customer, we do understand that the customer is not ignorant. They're complaining when they feel, or when they're not feeling, when they are not getting the supply that they want, whether it's low quality supply, inadequate, lower hours, whatever it is. The point is, for ECO, a lot of the accolades, we don't take the accolades for granted. We don't sit, because it's hard to sustain. So what we need to do is, customer care is key. Customers want to engage. Nobody sits and talks to electricity supplier all day. It's not a restaurant, it's not anything. They talk to you when they're having a problem. And what a customer hates in this world, and I'm a customer, is at the time of my problem, either I don't have someone that can solve it, or someone that can tell me what is my problem, what is the size of my problem, and how soon can you resolve it. So for me, this is key. And like I said, all our investments have gone along those lines. Supplying, where do we supply? Places where we have theft or bypasses or people are not paying, we need to figure out how to, again, it's expensive to redistribute. You would have an estate in an area, then you would have maybe a market. The estate wants to pay all the time for all the energy they get. You put in the energy there, this is a good example. The estate is right here, they want all the power. On the line that goes to them, there's a market, they don't want all the power. So you need to make sure, so we're invested in devices that will ensure that we can give people the kind of supply they want, or again, redistribute the network, redesign the network.
I sincerely apologize to Nigerians who have to bear all this back and forth about the way services are provided, not just electricity alone, services generally, or communication, or the way things are given to them. So I think, instead of blaming anybody for anything, I think what we need to do is to work hand in hand with the federal government through the regulator and ensure that whatever it is that we need to do to bring in efficiency and sufficiency. Because the product cannot be available if you continue to undersell it. You even scare away foreign investors. No foreigner will come with his money when he knows that he cannot recover his costs. So when you say, the issue of getting value for money is important. And that's why I kept on talking about efficiency. And I've said it before that efficiency, there's a link between efficiency and pricing. If you are selling bread and you are selling below the cost price, there will be a time that you will not be able to put that bread inside nylon. That means you begin to cut corner. So if we allow the right price, then we can then hold the operators, including discos in particular, we hold them to account.
It may be difficult to see any significant change in manufacturing, in SMEs and other sectors if there's no constant power supply. But where would the investment come from, and at what point would we see that? Well, this question continues to linger, begging for an answer. That's it on this episode of Special Report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.